to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could remain standing for a moment of silence for Med Barr, who was a longtime trustee, park board member, teacher, and a lot of people's driver's ed teacher as well. Also, Steve Herr, who served on the park board, was also an ordinance officer. So if we could do a moment of silence for them. Okay. Bill, if you could lead us in prayer.
Take a moment to pray before the meeting. Father in heaven, we thank you for the many blessings that you have provided to us here in Bedford Township and to our country in which we live. Pray that you would be with the families of Med Barr and Steve Herr as they go through this time of loss. Be with them, comfort them. Pray that you would be with the trustees tonight, provide them with wisdom, discernment as they work through the agenda tonight, that they make decisions that are in the best interest of Bedford Township. Pray for our first responders, Lord, as they deal with the many situations that they confront on a daily basis. Provide them with wisdom, discernment, and compassion so that they can treat people like they would want to be treated themselves. And our servicemen as well, Lord, be with them. All these things in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Next is approval of the agenda. I need a motion, please.
Motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Support.
Any discussion? Seeing none, please take the roll, Ms. Hirschberger.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Stump?
Aye.
Ms. Janasek?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Pryor?
Aye. Motion carries. Next is the consent agenda. Agenda committee recommends to approve and place on file A, minutes from the January 6th, 2026 regular meeting of the Bedford Township Board. B, general savings, pooled funds, and CD reports from the treasurer for December 2025. C, balance sheet and revenue expense report for the period ending December 31st, 2025. D, the annual investment report. E, reappointment of Jeff Wilson to the Board of Zoning Appeals. F, reappointment of D. Ellsworth to the Library Advisory Board. G, reappointment of Wendy Steinman to the Library Advisory Board. H, reappointment of Brian Foster to the Downtown Development Authority. And I, reappointment of Jason Jindo to the Downtown Development Authority. Can I get a motion, please?
Make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
We have support. Any discussion? Seeing none, please take the roll, Ms. Hirschberger.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Stump?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Ms. Janasek?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Pryor?
Aye, motion carries. Next is presentations by the Monroe County Sheriff's Department. Officer Hammond.
Good evening, Joe Hammond, Undersheriff with the Sheriff's Office. Say you have your stats in the packet. Everything seems to be kind of on par for what we typically see in the township here. Just to speak on it, though, while we're here, kind of a public service announcement, if you will. We've noticed an uptick in frauds throughout the county. They kind of stay consistently on the higher side as things that as complaints we receive. But in the last 2 months or so, we've seen an uptick in them, specifically the ones in which somebody will call and suggest that you've got a warrant for your arrest. May even try and identify one of the members of our agency as the person who's on the phone, telling you you've got a warrant for your arrest and then asking for you to pay the bond over the phone. I can assure you that we will never do that. If you had a warrant for your arrest and we were really interested in picking you up, we would knock on your door and introduce ourselves. We're not going to call you and suggest that you should pay that bond over the phone. So please don't do that. If you really truly believe for some reason that somebody was calling from our agency, hang up and call either central dispatch or one of our published numbers directly, rather than trying to talk your way through it on the phone with that individual. The other we get a number of times is someone posing as a financial institution, claiming there's been some fraud on your account and asking you to either withdraw all your funds in cash and then Western Union it to them, or we've had them even asked to mail cash to them. Believe it or not, people have engaged in that. So I would refrain from any of that. If you're getting a call and they're asking you for money, red flag should be up immediately. Hang up, call that individual or institution directly from the numbers you know them to have. And if you don't have an account with them, then you're probably, that should be a real red flag for you. So, but that's my little public service announcement. Hopefully we can reduce some of the calls our guys are investigating on that end. So, any questions?
Are you seeing any fraud with using AI at all, or?
Yeah, tons of it. That's where a lot of it comes from. One of the other frauds that we'll see is a call that portrays themselves as one of your relatives, families, friends, claiming to be in jail and asking for help to bond out. Whether that's an AI phone number or I've been on the scene of one where this was when I was still on the road, an individual that received a call claiming to be from their grandson, saying, "Hey, I'm in custody. They're telling me I need to post bond to help me. Please help me get out." And the grandson was arriving at the house to help prove that he wasn't in any trouble. But that's where a lot of the AI-generated calls will come from. They're trying to disguise their phone numbers, their voices, and everything else. And I think they're doing it really as a means of just speeding it up the process. They can make 100 calls at a time instead of just the one. So, any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
All right. Stay warm.
Appreciate you.
All right.
Next, we have the financial audit report. If Ian Reeves could step up.
Evening, everyone. My name is Ian. I'm from Gabridge & Company, the auditors for the township. So I'm going to be going over the financial report. I believe you all have a copy of the audit in front of you, so I'll reference that a few times. But if you have any questions as I'm going through it, feel free to just interrupt me and I'll answer as best I can. First, it was a pleasure to work with Bob and Trudy. Those were the two main people, but everybody involved made the audit very easy, and it's nice when the audit is easy and we get all the information correctly and quickly, and they did that. So I wanted to say that at the start. So in your report, if you open up to page number 1, it's 2 or 3 pages in, but at the bottom it says page number 1. This is the independent auditor's report, and it's our letter to you that says what our opinion is on the financial statements. So if you look at the first 2 paragraphs there under the opinion section, that is the wording or the verbiage for an unmodified or clean opinion. It's the best opinion the township could receive. So in essence, you pass the audit, and there's nothing better anybody could have done to get a better opinion. So that's the main point of the audit. You passed it. I will say as well, there was a alternative compliance examination, which is a different word. It's a federal audit over the ARPA funding, because you spent a lot of that this year. So you were in essence a single auditor, required a specific federal audit over the ARPA funding, and you passed. There were no issues with that as well. So that's in the back end of the report if you want to look there, but that's you got an unmodified opinion on that as well. If you go to page number 5, this is the start of the management discussion and analysis, and it'll go over the financial highlights of the township. So as of June 30, the fiscal year end we audited, 25, the assets of the township exceeded its liabilities by about $61 million. So you have more assets than anything you owe of $61 million. That represented an increase of about $6,300,000 over the previous year. So you had excess revenues over expenses of about $6 million, and that got you to your ending balance of $61 million shown as net position. Your governmental funds, which would be any funds except your, basically all funds except your OPEB trust or your water and sewer funds. They reported fund balances of about 18.7 million or 18.8 million, which was an increase, excess revenues over expenses of about 2.9 million. 31% of the fund balance, or 32%, or about 6 million, is considered unassigned and can be used for anything. It's entirely in your general fund, and it equates, again, or sorry, I'll get to the next point, but about a third-ish of your fund balance is unrestricted. The rest is either for major local streets, you don't have major local streets, but your road fund or any other restricted funds in that nature. The 6 million of unassigned fund balance equates to about 88% of your annual general fund expenditures. So what that means is if you receive no income as of June 30, you would theoretically survive about 88% of the next fiscal year. It's a way to tell, it's a ratio to tell how you're doing liquidity wise. So if you have enough cash to cover your next few months of bills. So you'd survive almost a year. That assumes very similar expenditures, though. So if you had a giant capital project in your general fund, you could spend that pretty quickly. Your general fund decreased its fund balance by about $800,000 over the previous year and ends with a $6 million fund balance. If you get on 2 more pages, 3 more to page 8, this is your statement of net position. It shows your assets and your liabilities, and it compares it between the 25 fiscal year and your 24 fiscal year, and it also breaks it down by governmental, which would be your general fund, road funds, those types of funds, and your business type activities, which would be your water, sewer fund, things of that nature. Your cash increased about 2.8 million, which is just due to there are a plethora of different reasons, but a large part is you just having excess revenues over expenses. Your receivables increased about 560,000. Your capital assets had a pretty small change in total, but there was $2.3 million of depreciation, and you added $2.4 million of assets, correlating to about a $100K increase in your capital assets. Your unearned revenue, which was almost all of your ARPA, decreased about $2 million because you spent it all. Not all of it, but a fair bit of it this year. So that's the significant decrease in that respect. And then your current and long-term portion of debt was paid down just in accordance with how you're supposed to pay it down for the bank. Those were the main changes in that respect. And then if you look at the bottom, you can see how much of your assets are tied up in capital assets, how much is restricted, and how much is unrestricted. So you're you have about 50% or so of your assets tied up in capital assets. If you go down 1 more page to page 10, 2 more pages to page 10, this is your statement of changes in that position. It shows your revenues and your expenses. The most notable change is obviously your ARPA being spent, so you had a pretty significant increase in your capital grants. Went from basically 0 to 2 million because of all the ARPA you spent on that project. Your charges for services decreased about 800,000 or so. Property taxes increased a pretty typical amount, 300K. And your investment income increased about 300K as well. Overall, your expenses were relatively similar in the aggregate. It decreased about 170,000. And all of that is boiled down into your ending net position. You increased it 600 or 6 million. So at a high level, that's where you guys stood as of June 30. If you go down to the basic financial statements, which is 10 or so pages down, page 17 is the start of it. Page 18 and 19 is exactly what we just went over, but just for your 25 fiscal year. Page 20 is your balance sheet for your governmental funds. Shows your general fund, fire fund, ARPA fund, special assessment fund, and all of your non-major funds. If you wanted to see where those specifically stood as of June 30 in terms of their fund balances. 2 more pages down would be the income statement for the same. Page 22, which shows your revenues, expenses for each of those funds. If you wanted a breakdown of that. And if you want a extreme breakdown of your non-major governmental funds, it's in the back end of the report. You can look there. But I won't pay too much attention to that. Page 24 is your water, or your sewer fund, actually. Balance sheet for that. And then the next page, page 25 is your income statement for the same. And then the only other thing, page 27 is your fiduciary funds, or your custodial fund, which would be your property tax fund, but that's not really important. The rest of the report is all just notes and more information on the financial statements. So if you cared about your OPEB, cash, capital assets, debt, all of that is in the notes of the financial statements. So I won't get too much into that, but any questions on any of this? Anything I can point out that you wanted more clarification on? You're one of the larger townships we work with. You're normal. You have positive fund balances in every fund. It's obvious that Bob and Trudy want to keep the financial statements operating well, and the stuff we get is good and doesn't require much adjusting. So I'd say you're better than normal in terms of your financial planning. If you know what you're doing with your funds and you know you have the money, that's basically all I can give you, unless you give me a specific thing you are thinking about working on. So,
Anybody else have any other questions? Or
That's how it's supposed to go.
exactly. Well, we appreciate your time. We need a motion to accept. Do we want to make one?
I'll make a motion to accept and place on file the financial audit report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025.
Support.
We have support. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please take the roll, Ms. Hirschberger.
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Stump?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Pryor?
Aye, motion carries. Thank you again.
thank you.
Appreciate you coming in.
You. Thank Bob again.
Next is public comment. Comments limited to 4 minutes for board agenda items only. Please state which agenda item you will be speaking on.
Gail Kane, Temperance. I want to speak to the consent agenda, primarily because it seems to be within the last year our appointments to our boards have been placed under this, which doesn't allow for conversation or discussion before these appointments are made. The reappointment is actually an alternate to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which isn't here. Now, you all get packets. I read it online. The public doesn't necessarily do that. They just listen to this meeting. So everything that is left out, they are left out of. As far as Brian Foster and Jason Jindo, that's to the DDA, and the public needs to know that this is a different setup than what some of our other ones are. Neither one of these people live here in the township, and that's acceptable. And why the reason is because Mr. Jindo, it just says he owns a business. Well, he owns the liquor cabinet, both of them. He also owns the old Rite Aid building. He also has property along Telegraph, which was intended for a marijuana dispensary, which of course we know didn't go through. But that information wasn't shared. Mr. Foster, it was stated he's an employee of the Fifth Third Bank. So those two appointments are different, and the public needs to know that this stuff is different, that it's not the typical appointment to some of our other committees per se. So, and the fact that the DDA, because they're under a state statute, but they're still under the authority of the township. I also mentioned to the sheriff that people have been asking to know the numbers of deputies that are sent out of our area. And again, they don't necessarily look at the packet. They don't have those numbers, but they were asking that supposedly it's not being said, and they were asking that we be told, because we don't pay for those. Once they leave our district and they're answering a call elsewhere, it falls on somebody else's bill. So they were asking for that. So I let him know, and he said that he would try to remember to try to bring that stuff back up again. As far as the DDA, because of that glitch that they're just now being appointed, there were 3 of their members on the DDA meeting that had maxed out their eligibility. All 3 of them attended the January meeting. They were not eligible to be sitting at that table. Their terms had expired. So I'm making that aware. Question would be is whether they had a quorum for their January meeting, and if those people voted, their votes were null and void. They were not appointed back to the DDA. So there's some concerns with some of these dates, how this stuff is addressed, how it's handled, and again, those days off could have been used to get this stuff all in line, because this is what needed to happen. So that was a question also, is what happened at the January DDA meeting, and these people were not eligible, so they really could not sit at the table. Thank you.
Jacqueline Arvanitis, Temperance. I just want to kind of talk about D, the moratorium resolution, which I think most people are in favor of, so I think it's great you guys are doing that. Basically, we're pumping the brakes for a year. I am curious exactly how the public's going to be able to stay abreast as to what's going on. So if we have a year, we want to stay ahead of this thing, I know you guys are maybe the planning committee, the commission, I don't know how all that works, but what's the game plan after the year's up, I guess is my concern, and what are we doing and planning out the process of what's going to be taking place. Like, I feel like every single meeting should have an update on what's going on with that, because there's huge concern in the community about that. It seems like maybe Mr. Stump's taking the lead on that. I'm not sure exactly. I know he's up in Lansing a lot. Those people, I talked to Bellino. He told me to my face that data centers are inevitable, and we could end up with one in Bedford. And he said that it'll be good for our property taxes, so that didn't really make me feel very good. So I'm just concerned. He also was very ignorant as to why data centers are coming around. So I'm curious if we have any plan to have any expertise brought in with regards to this, because I am concerned that, I've been in IT for 20 years, and a lot of times I hear, no offense to legislators, talking about this, and they don't actually know anything about it. And I'm concerned about, I don't know, our wells going dry. So just want to know what your guys' plans are, and if you're going to be keeping it transparent to the public. Thank you.
Any further comments? Seeing none, we'll be moving on. 7A, vouchers for payment.
I'd like to make a motion that the following vouchers be approved for payment. General Fund, $67,047.26. Fire Fund, $21,106.37. Fire Equipment, $1,681.71. Downtown Development Authority, $12,468.32. Library Fund, $6,949.98. Capital Asset Revolving Fund, $1,247.72. Building Department, $3,404.91. Sewer O&M Fund, $437,946.27. Trust and Agency Fund, $4,883.25, for a grand total of $556,735.79.
We have support. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please take the roll, Ms. Hirschberger.
Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Janasek? Aye. Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Stump?
Aye.
Mr. Pryor?
Aye, motion carries. 7B, resolution to approve the 2026 sewer use rates. Krista?
So every year we have to come to the board to either raise or lower the sewer rates. This year, it's not much, but the rates will be going down a little bit. For example, household with a usage of 20,000 gallons of water used in 1 quarter, which is 3 months, will go from $185 down to $184.83 with the new rates that are proposed. The reason we were able to do that is we were able to pay down some debt. I know it's not a lot, but it's going down a little bit. And that's what I have. That is true.
Right. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2026 sewer use rate resolution as presented.
Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none, please take the roll, Ms. Hirschberg.
I'll second it.
I was going to say. Second.
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Stump?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Pryor?
Aye, motion carries. Next is approve Habitat installation cost and reoccurring fire monitoring. This is for the library, and we said we would come back because they originally said it was going to be like $85. We were able to get them down to $65 a month. So this is bringing this back to the board. We already approved that for the installation. We were just up in the air in regards to what the service monitoring would be. If I can get a motion. What? I mean, we could if you want to. Trudy's suggesting if we want to revote on the 600 for the, which we already did, but we could.
I'll include it. I'll make the motion.
Huh?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve the Habitat installation cost and reoccurring fire monitoring at $600, which covers all permits and associated fees. And then there was an ongoing cellular and monitoring fee of $65 a month. And funding will become from the security monitoring account 271-000-805.0014.
Support.
We have support. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please take the roll, Ms. Hirschberg.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Stump?
Aye.
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Pryor?
Aye, motion carries. Last, we have moratorium resolution. Direction is needed from the Township Board to go forward with the following. Authorize the planning director and legal counsel to draft a moratorium resolution that will prohibit acceptance of any applications for data centers for a period of 1 year. To allow the Planning Department and Planning Commission to provide the Township Board with a zoning ordinance amendment regarding data center special land use standards and an overlay district within which data centers may be allowed subject to special land use approval. Greg?
I have a question for Phil. Right before the meeting, I was just flipping through MTA Township Focus. They had a section on data centers and have a question about moratoriums, and they don't say why, but they say should be adopted by ordinance in parentheses, not resolution. But it doesn't say why or anything. So I was just curious, like what your stance was on the differences and why you're recommending resolution as opposed to ordinance in that regard.
Well, actually, I am recommending an ordinance.
Okay.
Townships do it both ways, by resolution or by ordinance.
Okay.
The safest way is to do it by ordinance. So it's a general code ordinance. So there's no statutory provision in Michigan for a moratorium. However, the appellate courts in Michigan have recognized that moratoriums are appropriate, but only, not just, in this case, not just to stop applications for a year, saying, with the inference being we don't want data centers or data centers, but you actually have to be working on a plan. And in this case, what I propose to do to the board, once we adopt the moratorium ordinance, what I propose to do is to work with planning. Actually, we've already started it. We've had a meeting. Trustee Josh Stump was present in that meeting. We did not have a quorum, but we discussed data centers in our community. I don't want the township to be in a position, say, for example, as Saline Township. They're the ones that recently entered into a consent judgment because they were sued by the developer who purchased, and the landowner who purchased a large tract of agricultural land in Saline Township for the purpose of a data center. And they had nothing in their ordinance relative to data centers. And so their legal theory was exclusionary zoning. You can't, in Michigan, you can't engage in exclusionary zoning. If there's a demonstrable need for a particular land use, then, and you attempt to exclude it, either A, by overtly excluding it, or B, by not having it in your zoning ordinance, you're susceptible to a lawsuit that could be successful. So what we propose to do is to amend our zoning ordinance to include special land use provisions for a data center. And what I'm going to recommend is that we do an overlay district and say, if someone wants to come in, Bedford Township, and put a data center in, here's where it can go. It's going to be, if the board approves it, in an already a district that's zoned industrial. So we'll provide for it probably on a much smaller basis than what some of these companies are looking for, within an industrial zoning district with special land uses. And the special land uses will cover the gamut: electric, water usage. Are they going to have a closed circuit system? Are they going to use public water? Are they going to draw water from the ground? We're going to address, there's a whole list of things that we can address in an ordinance. So a moratorium is enforceable as long as you are working toward a zoning ordinance amendment to address the land use that is the subject of your moratorium. So that's what the proposal is, not just to say we're not going to accept applications, zoning applications or land use applications for a data center, period. We're going to be working on a zoning ordinance amendment that will protect the township, hopefully protect the township, and provide safeguards that will protect the township and adjacent land uses where these things could go. And it'll be severely restricted, or it will be restricted. So better to have a plan in place than not have a plan in place and hope that they don't come. Have a plan in place. We dictate where they can go, because we can do that. The township can do that. The legislative body can do that. So that's my recommendation, and it is going to be an ordinance, because I feel that's the safer way to do it if it were ever attacked by someone who wanted to employ that land use.
We're effectively
being proactive.
Legally binding. Well, luckily, we're not that proactive, because if they came to Bedford and said, Saline, you get lucky. We got lucky a little bit to be ahead of it as much as we can. Now that you saw some writing on the wall, I suppose. But we're getting legally protected. Give us a second, correct?
Yes.
Is there a limit on how long we can do that? And is that, say that we say 12 months and we're still working on it on month 14, how does that work?
We need to finish it within that 12-month period, or sooner than that. A lot of times, public entities will do 6 months and then they'll extend it. I'm proposing do a year, but I'm telling you not telling you we can't, but I'm suggesting to you we should not go beyond that year. And really, we should get it done inside of a year. And so what has to happen is that a proposed ordinance will be developed by planning, and I'll assist them to the extent that they need that. Then that will go to the Planning Commission, and they'll look at it. They'll have meetings. People can provide input at the Planning Commission meetings. And then most importantly, there will be a public hearing. Whenever you have a zoning ordinance amendment, there has to be a public hearing. The public hearing will invite comments from the public, and even meetings before that, during public comment time, people can comment on that at the Planning Commission meetings. Once the Planning Commission has developed an ordinance that they want to recommend to the Township Board for adoption, they'll do that after the public hearing. It comes then to the Township Board, and then the Township Board can either adopt it in the form it's presented or take further public comment, maybe send it back to planning and say, we'd like to see this, this, and this in this ordinance. And then when it's in a form that the Planning Commission is happy with, that they recommend approval, and this board is happy with, then it is adopted, and we go through the publication process. Any zoning ordinance amendment is subject to referendum. I don't think we'll see any movement in our community for a referendum. We're trying to protect the community and the adjacent landowners where these things could possibly go. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. What happens we adopt this now? You and planning start working on it. We're entering into this time frame. 2 months from now, somebody currently owns property and is attempting to develop a data center. How that would work? What happens? How does that work?
We tell them that we have adopted a moratorium ordinance which prohibits all applications for data centers.
Okay. So
that type of use within the township.
Down. Okay.
And those have been held by the appellate courts to be enforceable.
Okay.
So the key is you don't want to go beyond a year. We can get it done sooner. The sooner the better. And if you're diligently working toward the development of a zoning ordinance amendment, the courts have upheld, the appellate courts have upheld them to be enforceable. It'd be nice if there was legislation on point, a statute that allowed moratoriums, but it's a body of law that has evolved over time, and again, the courts have recognized them as being enforceable.
Okay, thank you.
Couple questions, Bill. I'm glad we're getting ahead of the game, and as far as I know, Bedford Township has not been approached by any data center company or anything like that. And we all know that these corporations have more money than we can even imagine, and they've got a slew of attorneys too. But I remember back when we were able to stop solar and wind farms and things like that, but the state cut our legs right out from underneath us. And now we have no control over if a solar farm or wind farm, we make an ordinance like this and the midterms come up, and however they work out, can the state put something in place similar to what they did with the Green Energy Initiative and cut our legs out from underneath it to where we can't stop it?
Well, I don't think the energy is there in Lansing to do that.
Not yet, but we have midterms coming up.
Yeah, but having said that, our governor was in favor of the data center that's going in Saline Township. And there's been a lot of discussion over that. There's been a lot of discussion over DTE going to the Michigan Public Service Commission to get approval to provide energy for the data center, and how that will impact the surrounding landowners. Is that going to cause their rates to go up in many communities across the country? It has. And so the governor was in favor of it and saw that as something good for the state. Of course, you talk to most of the people in Saline Township, they have a contrary opinion. But yes, the state could adopt legislation to preempt local regulation.
That's what I'm worried about.
It could happen, but I haven't seen or heard of a movement in that direction as it relates to data centers.
Right, and I understand that. Now, in the midterms come up, if you have one side controlling everything, the House, the Senate, the governor, same party, they can push anything through, and nothing can stop it.
Yeah, and I'll just give you an old maxim, worry about what you control, don't worry about
I just want to make sure that, we make this ordinance, and great, I'm all for it, and I want to put some more teeth into it. And Mr. Stump brought up before, like, in our ordinance, we will not enter into any NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, and some things like that, make it less attractive for anybody to come here. And we can control that now. I just want to make sure that people understand, depending on how the election goes, they could push something through, in the next session, after the midterms, that would completely take it out of our hands altogether, like they did with the green energy.
There are 2 locations that are being considered in Monroe County right now for data centers, Dundee and Frenchtown Township, and it appears that Frenchtown and its board, and it's based upon the location, might be in favor of that. So, and that their location is more, I guess, maybe more attractive to the entities that are promoting data centers. So we may see them in Monroe County in other townships and other units of government, but and there's larger land masses. What we want to do is prevent any of our agricultural areas where there are some rather large land masses from being used for that purpose. So, that they come in, they identify maybe 200, 300 acres, and they offer a big ticket price to the landowner, and it's hard for them to say no when they're presented with something like that. So we want to prevent that happening through zoning. And you, as the legislative body of this township, and the Planning Commission through the Master Land Use Plan, have the right to control development within the township. We can't exclude certain land uses where a demonstrable need can be presented, but we can regulate them, and we can say where they're going to go if they're going to go.
I think the other thing we need to note is in Frenchtown, they own that property, like I told a few of you. They own the 225 acres. And I would encourage everybody to go see Jody and actually study the land maps in terms of the acreage sites that we do have available. The one thing we have in our favor, unlike some other townships, we don't have like 500 acres here, 800 acres here, because even though Phil had mentioned they come in, I think in Dundee they're trying to get 1,000 acres, if I'm not mistaken. So these are not projects that are 5 years. These are projects that are 15, 20, could be 30 years down the road in terms of that. I was at a meeting today. It's all across the board. You get some townships and entities, they're in favor of them, and others are like, we need to back off on this and really study it and see what to do. Because we need to always remember, no matter what you do, someday you could have an empty building. And then what do you do? And these are not little buildings. They go on and on. Also, too, I just read, I believe, Phil, I got to do a little more research. I think it is in Southfield. They are doing a mini data center where they're going into the city with them.
Yeah, I
So
think that might have already been approved. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
so it's not just big, big parcels. They might come in and say, hey, we can grab that 25 acres right there, or maybe it's 50 or whatever. So there's just a lot of things going on. I was up at SEMCOG, so there's a lot of discussion on it today. So any other?
So that's the plan. I need you to authorize planning, Jody and I, to prepare the ordinance, and then get it back on the agenda for you to adopt it, a general code ordinance. We don't have to have a public hearing on that, on a general code ordinance. And then get that adopted, and let's hit the ground running and start the process for developing the ordinance amendment, zoning ordinance amendment.
Regarding the NDAs and the local tax incentives, where does that come in the process? Is it going to be through our ordinance and the moratorium?
Yeah. I don't think, I'm not in favor of NDAs. I'm not a voting member of the board, but I don't think the board is in favor of non-disclosure agreements because it just detracts from the process, and then the public doesn't know, and it defeats the transparency of developing a land use. So I don't think this board will have any opposition to saying we're not going to enter into any non-disclosure agreements relative to application for this type of land use.
Any further questions, or we can get a motion?
We'll go ahead and make a motion that we authorize the planning director and legal counsel to draft a moratorium resolution that will prohibit acceptance.
I'm gonna interrupt you. Moratorium ordinance.
Moratorium ordinance. Okay.
Sorry.
Will prohibit acceptance of any applications for data centers for a period of 1 year to allow the planning department and planning commission to provide the township board with a zoning ordinance amendment regarding data centers, special land use standards, and an overlay district within which data centers may be allowed subject to special land use approval.
Support.
You have support? Any further discussion, questions?
Did we miss anything?
No,
We get it?
Okay.
Okay.
we're good.
Ms. Hirschberger, please take the roll.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Stump?
Aye.
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Pryor?
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Phil.
You're welcome.
Comments from the public. Comments limited to 2 minutes for each individual. Remember, the board will not be engaging in the comments.
Good evening, everybody. Regarding those empty buildings, I know a guy that could sell those if they do happen, just letting you know. Steve Lennox, 7459 Monterey Drive, Temperance, longtime resident of Bedford Township. Been in the commercial real estate business for a long time, too. It was about 40 years, and I have significant experience dealing with zoning and ordinance issues on behalf of my clients, which leads me to why I'm here tonight and why I wrote the letter calling for the repeal of some very damaging and restrictive ordinances concerning gas stations and the sale of alcohol. I'm here tonight on behalf of two of my real estate clients, Mike Hajnecki, who owns the northeast corner of Lewis and Smith. He could not be here tonight. And also Ron and Diane Hubbard, who are here tonight, who own the southwest corner. And I want you to know that these are fine property owners. They pay property taxes, and they have been very badly and unfairly damaged by the ordinance I referenced, which in my mind have clearly outlived their usefulness. If in fact they were ever useful or needed at all, and the people I've talked to, nobody seems to know how they got there or where they came about, how they came about. But I want you to know we've had numerous contracts on both of these prime corners. And because of the ordinances, they were canceled. It happens, we haven't had a closing yet. And prospects I talk to, I get 3 or 4 a week. they all walk away once I tell them about the ordinances because they say they're deal breakers and they don't want to waste time or money. And you know, this has been going on for a long time, number of years. And frankly, we're tired of it, and we're going to take a stand here tonight.
Thank you for your comments.
Is that it?
That's two. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Garrett Keaton. I'm the attorney for the entity owned by Mike Hodgenacki. I just wanted to chime in real briefly, just a second, that there has been, issue in moving these properties, and I think if we look at, what the master plan calls for in this area and the kind of uses, we see a gas station as a permitted use here, and so kind of in tandem with what was mentioned earlier tonight when we look at tax revenues of properties, we have these sections just sitting kind of vacant where they could be, a good earning resource for the township. And so as you consider what was mentioned by Mr. Lennox, I just wanted to voice my support for a modification of that ordinance, specifically in regards to, the 500 feet from a school, for a gas station, or a child care center under a different part of the zoning ordinance has a 300-foot requirement. But those have hindered, the ability to sell and develop those properties. Thank you for your time.
Ron Hubbard, 3490 West Samaria Road, Temperance, lifetime Bedford resident, owner of the southwest corner, Smith and Lewis. I ask that you have an open mind and making changes to this ordinance that affects us at Smith and Lewis. Ordinance was enacted back in 1977, 48 years ago. We do not know why or who asked for it. But in downtown Temperance, we have a church. In kitty corner of that church is a gas station that sells alcohol. To everyone's knowledge and belief, I don't believe there's any problems, or there haven't been any problems that have arisen from the sale of gas and alcohol there. On the corner of Dean and Lewis, there's a gas station that sells alcohol, and it directly butts up against a residential neighborhood. Again, to my knowledge and belief, there hasn't been any problems there. Lewis Avenue was widened to 5 lanes. The purpose of that was to attract and to accommodate commercial businesses. Currently, with that ordinance in place, if we had an Applebee's that became interested in coming into Bedford Township at that intersection, we couldn't accommodate them. We could have a fine restaurant that wanted to sell alcohol with their meals. Again, we couldn't accommodate them. So if you would, ask yourself, is this ordinance, is it proper? Is it fair? Thank you.
Gail Kane Temperance, there's not enough time for me to address their issues, so I'm just going to take care of my business. As far as the unfinished business, the library painting, that should be in here someplace. It kind of got left. I didn't know if there were new numbers put up for more bidding. As far as the data centers, the Toledo City is looking. So they too have been approached by the small ones, and they're looking to gather information so that they're ready when they come knocking. Mr. Martinez on the city council, and I reached out to him, and he's more than willing, because they get their information from Temacog, to share. So if anybody wants to take that on, just so you know. And you have to remember with the data centers, the property owners, as I've always been told, have a right and an option to sell to make money. No different from all the real estate moguls who come through here years ago and overdeveloped us. And the farmers, if they don't have a family coming up, you need to be prepared to give them back some of their monies that they've put into these properties. So that's the thing. I'm not saying I want a data center. I'm not for or against anything over here. It's just you have to remember that has to be fair as well. You know, these people have a right to get their money, and if that's how they get it, that's how they get it. So I don't know what else to tell you, but yeah, it's happening all over, and Josh shared with some of us that information that he's gotten from the state level. So thank you kindly.
This board represents us and functions best when democratic principles and laws allowing residents to freely participate are followed. I'd like to suggest a few democratic reforms. First, I must respectfully disagree with Mr. Stump's assertions that that Bedford continues to lead by example with one of the most open, least restrictive public comment policies where transparency and accountability matter. I think that's certainly revisionist history. Rather than claiming that he led the charge to protect free speech, I know credit rightfully belongs to residents who've been sitting in those seats. Residents deserve credit for accomplishing the following: halting the unwanted, unlawful publishing of addresses of public comment residents, clawing back most of the time cuts imposed in board censorship of residents, reversing anti-free speech, unlawful restrictions imposed to prevent our criticism of the board. There is more reform work to do. I'd like to point to some exemplars in Monroe for help. Many boards are less grudging regarding time and restrictions for PC. Frenchtown and Monroe Board of Commissioners, 2 PC periods, 3 minutes each, importantly with no agenda-only requirement for either. Milan, 2 PCs, 7 total minutes, importantly general comment is 5 minutes. London, 2 PCs, no time limits, no restrictions. Monroe Board, residents are not aggressively gavelled or buzzed to stop. Comment is skillfully and respectfully, without bias, led to conclusion by the chair. Reform number 1, restore our previously cut 1 minute with both PC periods having no agenda items only restriction, managed in an equitable and respectful manner by the supervisor. Thank you.
Jacqueline, I'm going to finish for Karen. The Monroe Board publishes minutes with objective summaries of each public commentary, providing a fair and valuable record. Unaccountably, when we achieved removal of our addresses, this board completely discontinued its partisan summaries, rendering residents voiceless. Reform number 2, reinstate comprehensive objective summaries of resident public comment in our minutes. Reform number 3, the Frenchtown Board's notice of public participation, included as a full page in each agenda, encapsulates the spirit of democratic reforms requested. Quoting some of it, "Welcome to Frenchtown Township. We are pleased that you are expressing your interest in township government issues by attending this meeting. We are very interested in hearing your views on any item on the agenda or any other issue of concern to you. If you desire to speak with any board member following the meeting, please do not hesitate to make your wishes known." Contrast that with our comparable, very short agenda phrase, "The board township furthermore encourages your input." It's at the bottom of the agenda. I don't know why, but the word encourages is in quotation marks. I do know that quotation marks can be used to signal sarcasm or doubt, to show that a word's meaning is questionable or really the opposite. Quote, fresh apples to really mean rotten apples. It's called using air quotes. We would all benefit from these reforms, enabling a more welcoming, democratically representative board, serving all residents equally in accordance with our laws. No one wants resident participation is encouraged to mean it's air quote opposite. And just speaking for myself, this board did take 5 minutes of public comment time away from its citizens, and we spent months clawing that back, and you only restored 4 minutes of it. And we should just get at least that 1 minute back in public comment time. That's the standard. 3 minutes for general comment. As these people here right here, they came to talk about something very important, and they got cut off because 2 minutes is just not enough time for general comment when you limit it on agenda items. Thank you.
Justin McCullough, Temperance. Bedford has 3 warming centers: the library, the Senior Community Center, and Bridgepoint Church. All 3 centers close by 5 p.m. This weekend, the temperature will dip to 0, not including the wind chill. So as the temperature drops to the lowest point overnight, anyone needing a warm place to stay has nowhere to go. The closest place is Oaks of Righteousness, which only has a 75-bed capacity to serve 156,000 people in Monroe County. Mr. Pryor, you're the liaison to the Housing Commission, so this might be better suited for that board. And as we heard earlier in the meeting, the township has quite a surplus in many of its balance sheets. I'm asking that the board and the township look into approving special purpose permits and collaborate with local nonprofits and funding or expanding existing warming centers to provide a safe, warm place for anyone that needs it overnight. Also, still no updates on the updated board policy. It's been 6 months, so I'm assuming it's an extremely extensive review, and the public is eagerly looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with. Thanks.
Any further comments?
Hi, Wendy Robertson, Temperance. On January 8th, I called and asked about what I need to do something to get a flag at half-mast, which the precedent on September 16th, this board set. So far, I haven't had no response except for Mr. Pryor, who said that I should be on the agenda, hopefully on the 20th. I have not heard anything since, and I would like to know what's going on. You guys set the precedents. You brought it up. You put it on the agenda. You passed it. Now, we as the residents of, Bedford would like to know, how do we get to do this? Thank you.
Any further comments?
I wasn't going to say anything, taking the bait, unfortunately. There was a meeting not that long ago where you guys came up here and were told you could not criticize individual board members, okay? That happened. We as a board and working with the public said, nope, we would like that right for you guys to come up to to our meeting and criticize us and what happens in a board meeting and outside of a board meeting. You can talk with Phil. There's a gray area. We could limit it to what happens at board meetings and official township business. You guys have the right to come up and criticize my Facebook posts, Todd's Facebook posts, things that happen outside of board meetings. We don't have to necessarily allow that. That's a gray area within our public comment time and the Open Meetings Act. Phil, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But some townships, some school boards don't allow that. Go to the Bedford Public School Board meeting. Try to criticize an individual there. It's not going to happen. I've tried it. It doesn't work. So whether it's my credit, this board's credit, your credit, don't really care. I want you to have the ability to come up here and criticize us. Say what you want. Freedom of speech. It's a good thing. Other than that, have a wonderful night.
Mr. Bruni.
Everybody have a good night, good weekend.
Joe?
Yeah. Al, Bob, Trudy, and everybody else involved in our financial audit, well done. Thank you very much. I know it was a lot of work and everything like that, but it's nice that everybody else comes up and criticizes us and says we're doing bad things, but we're doing great things here in Bedford Township. We're financially strong. We're jumping ahead of this whole data center thing, and there's a lot of good things still coming. So great job on the day. Hey, and congratulations on spending the ARPA money, and we got a clean bill of health. And after we got pounded for years on the ARPA funds, and here it is, we get a clean bill of health on the ARPA funds that we spent the money on. So that's awesome. So thanks again to all of you.
Come on, try.
Nothing from me.
Krista.
Just everybody have a safe and enjoyable what's left of an evening and a nice weekend.
Rudy.
Just for public knowledge, on January 28th, Wednesday, the clerk's office will be closed from noon to 2 p.m., actually 11:30 to probably 2:30. We will be in Monroe for training.
Great. Yeah, I want to thank Bob, Trudy, Krista, everybody on that side of the hall. as well. I think at this point in time, we have one of the smoothest running staffs that we've ever had in terms of processing invoices right on down. So it is going quite well. I would also like to say the DDA is getting real close to coming to the board. They've had a meeting with Phil in terms of the traffic signals that we're proposing. So that's going to come before you here shortly. Also, the next board meeting I'm looking to bring, and it won't be inexpensive, but we got to fix the panel. So we're getting our quotes. We got our last one, should be coming this week. I'm tired of turning the lights on full time. I come over here on the weekends to make sure they're on for the sheriff's department, because we'll turn them on, they'll flip off. It's just not a good situation. So we're definitely, that's a real high priority in terms that we're doing. We've submitted a grant for Banner Oak School, a new front door. It's more historical, energy efficient, new ramp. I don't know if we'll get it, but hey, we're shooting for it. I'll be applying for another grant too through the Monroe Museum to get something else for Banner Oak as well. We are officially done with the maintenance building. We're moving. We have our occupancy permit. As the public may or may not know, that was paid for with ARPA funds. So we did not take out any loans, and we stayed within our budget and our contract price. And if you notice, we never came to you for any more money. Okay?
That'd be the first time since I've been on the board.
Exactly. Now, I can't tell you that everybody on the job site liked me. And my two associates here could probably attest. But I want to also, the three of us worked really well on getting that building done. And we did have a few contentious issues, but overall, the contractor was great to work with. They provided some things they didn't have to. So overall, it was a very good experience. So you'll be seeing stuff moving over there. I have nothing else. Stay warm, and we'll go from there.
Motion to adjourn.